Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on What's New in Prisma. We have a jam-packed show in store for you guys. So hopefully you're sitting back, you're relaxing, and we're going to talk a lot about Prisma, what's going on, what we've released recently. We're also going to bring on a few guests. I actually have a little outline here we're going to share with you guys. So we're going to start off the show with What's New in Prisma 5.2 with another developer advocate from Prisma joining us, John. He's going to be talking about all the cool stuff that's coming. We have a demo that's going to be presented as well, showing off one of the new cool features in 5.2. We also have Petra joining us, and she's going to be doing an Accelerate demo. Just recently went into preview. So we're going to be talking about what that is, how you guys can use it, and how you guys can use it right now because it's in preview and you're able to use it today. And then we also have Yuval from the Amplification team joining us, and he's going to be giving an awesome demo about Amplification, the entire product, along with their new feature, the DB import schema feature that they just released into beta and how that uses Prisma. So with that, you guys will be able to kind of see how the power of Prisma is helping people build incredible things, right? And then the last thing, you know, and you love him, Tyler, he's going to be coming on, an engineer at Prisma. He's going to be helping answer questions about Prisma. And we're going to be pulling some questions out of the Discord and answering in chat. So feel free to ask all the questions all day long as you like. And we'll be saving those till the end if they're relevant to kind of the ORM and to Prisma in general. And we'll be trying to answer those then. So let's get started with the update for 5.2. I'm going to be bringing on John here, hit a transition, and we'll be right back. Thanks for being here, everybody. John, what's going on, man?
Hello, happy to be here.
Welcome.
Not much, but pretty good day.
Great. Yeah, so everybody that's in the chat as well, John is the backup main host guy if my internet goes out because I'm having some storm problems. So if I start freezing, just start typing John in chat and he'll know to take over or something like that. But John, why don't we talk a little bit about 5.2? Maybe you want to give a little bit of a summary and then we can pull up these slides and talk about the individual features and then get into the demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we released 5.2. This is our second minor release since the major version of version 5.0.0. You know, yeah. So we're focused on really honing in on making Prisma great for everyone. So that's focusing a lot on query performance. And that sort of continues the trend of our performance improvements and performance learnings since we did startup performance back in major version 4. So, you know, this is more of an iterative update rather than a transformative one. But we're really excited about it, and we're really happy with the changes that are coming with 5.2.
Yeah, I mean, we do an update every 3 weeks, so they are kind of iterative. And every now and then we will have the big one like 5.0, but I think it's important that we do that every 3 weeks because we're always putting out new things and always getting feedback from you guys on what to put out. So let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the highlights from 5.2. I put together a little bit of a slideshow here with some screenshots from the patch notes, and we can talk about some individual features. This one I found pretty interesting, the use of limit inside of one-to-many relations. Essentially what we're doing is we're increasing the speed of these types of queries rather than grabbing everything, putting it into memory, and then pulling it out. We're just using the query directly. Maybe, John, you can explain a little bit more about how that's done or why we did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really in our trend of like databases are really good at certain things, and Prisma should leverage those tools and those functionalities when we can. So previously, when you did a include within a relation, and you had, I don't know, 50,000 rows, right, of relations, but you only wanted 3. What we would do is we would take all of those relations in memory and then take 3 of them. Obviously, that's not a great way to do that. And so instead, what we're using is the limit functionality at a database to say, hey, I don't need all 50,000 related objects. I only need 3. Just get those.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's you hit the nail on the head as far as all these performance improvements are going. We're continuing to find things like this that we can use. which I think is great. So hopefully anybody that's doing relation queries like this actually feels these improvements. Make sure you update to 5.2. Moving on, we have this simplified connection string. And I found this really interesting because what you're able to do is inside your client, you're able to specify the database that you want to connect to without having to go to the schema, right? So what does that kind of like enable, John? Like what might you be able to do with that?
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons why you might want to do this. Frankly, you can think of this as dynamic connection strings. So within the Prisma schema, you define your connection string, your URL within the data source. But sometimes within a production environment or in very specific cases, you actually want to override that and say, thank you, but I would prefer to be connecting to a different database. And I would not like to connect to the database that I defined in my schema. That's what this lets you do. Previously, so this functionality has actually always existed. And that is, well, not always existed, but this functionality has existed previously. And the API for it wasn't great. So this is in 5.2, we simplified this, that you no longer have to do this nested DB and string, and you have to know what your data source name is. No, none of that. You just provide a URL. You say, this is what I want to connect to.
Yeah, that's great. I think it adds a lot of flexibility, and you're right. It's been doable, but it hasn't been easy. And so now we're making it easy, which is great. All right, moving on to the further improvements with nested writes. So if you guys remember from 5.1, we did kind of a segment and talking about the queries behind the ORM and what was running. And one thing we did is we changed a lot of those top level queries to use the returning statement. Well, what we did in this one is we added that to the queries that are inside of the write queries. And John's going to be able to explain this a little bit better, but we're going to jump into a little bit of code example here. John, why don't you talk about what this is doing, and then we'll show like the SQL that was and then the SQL that is.
Yeah. So this query is an update on a post. So it's saying, hey, find me the post ID 1. And then I want to update the related record comment with a new body. And then I would like to return both the ID and the title of the post. So you're doing a nested update here, a nested write. So you're not really updating the outer element, although you could in this statement. You're updating a related record through a single query or through a single Prisma operation.
Yeah. So as you can expect, that's probably quite large to do or quite intensive to do, right? So
it can be, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the query that we used to run, this was what behind the scenes kind of it looked like. And as you can see, that's a lot of selects there, John.
Yeah. So this is how you have to handle this kind of thing without using a returning statement. And I'll kind of go into like how that returning statement works probably when you show me the next slide. But yeah, there it is. Oh, wow, it's less lines. So essentially what's happening here is that the returning statement, so let's say you wanted to do this nested write without a returning statement. You would need to write to the outer sort of element, in this case, the post. You would then need to query that and get back the information you need to then go find the nested record. You go there, you write to that, and then you have to query it again to get back the things you need. And so it's this hops back and forth, back and forth. With returning, instead, don't need that. You simply, I think it's here on the
second last line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I clicked this. I was trying to double click the code like I was.
Yeah. So we see here, we have this returning saying, okay, like here's how, we're going to return this. And what that lets us do is remove some of those hops. So when you're making an update, you can now just make an update and use returning to get the information back you need. You don't have to then select against the table.
Yep.
So it's per hop, it saves you one query. So
which
pretty nice savings.
Yeah, and those things built up, right? I mean, this is what you're writing in the Prisma, in the client, and then these little improvements that we're continuing to do are just going to continue to improve your overall performance. And that's what we're really
Absolutely.
focusing on right now. So while it might not, it might not seem like a huge difference here on end lines, but it is over time as you continue to do this, a large improvement to your overall response times.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, it's a savings of 1 per hop. So if you have, a really deeply nested relation, which can happen, I've been there, this will like iteratively save you more and more and more calls the deeper nested you get.
That's great. That's great. So this last kind of highlight we wanted to point out, John has a little bit of a demo here, I believe. This is the no engine flag.
Yes.
You know way more about this than I do. Why don't you just take it away and we'll do the demo here, whatever we need to do.
Yeah, sure. So I'll describe this and then I'll hop into the demo to sort of show how things are nicer now. So basically, previous to Prisma 5.2.0, if you wanted to utilize Prisma Accelerate or Prisma Data Proxy, you had to use either the -- accelerate or -- data proxy flags when you generated your client. We also had an environment variable that did that, automatically, but same thing under the hood. And so this led to sort of a weird case where, if you wanted to do local development or against a direct connection to a database, you'd have to generate your client one way. And then if you were deploying your application, you have to remember to generate your client a different way. And then if you want to test Accelerate locally, you'd have to regenerate. There's just a lot of regeneration and a lot of weirdness that went on with this. And so we heard from the community that, why can't Prisma's looking at my schema. Prisma's, understands what I'm connecting to. Why can't Prisma just understand how to connect to these different connection strings? And so now we're doing that. And so, I'm happy to show that off now. If I can find the right window.
Yeah, no worries. And chat, if you guys have any questions about 5.2, please don't hesitate to ask. That's what we're here for. It seems like we're, just reading off the slides right now, but this is interactive, right? It's live. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. Mr. Tung, I don't think I said your name right, but thanks so much for being here. Hi, how you doing? Let's go ahead and jump into this. I think, John, you're ready, right? I don't want to share your screen.
I am ready. No, please.
There we go.
Cool. So this is an example project that we have. And we see here that it's a Next.js app that is using Prisma client. I'm not going to show my .env file because I don't want that on the internet forever. But, suffice it to say that inside of there is a Prisma connection string that's using Prisma Accelerate. So we're going to go ahead and run Prisma generate here. Again, this is 5.1.1. So this is previous behavior. And we generated our client. So, maybe you should upgrade to 5.2 and we'll see why you may want to do that very shortly. And then we're going to run our server. And again, trust me, you can't see the window that popped up, but you will see that when I hit load posts, it's angry. It says, hey, you're not, if you want to use Prisma, you need to use Accelerate or Data Proxy. That's annoying. We don't want that behavior. So what we're going to do here is come in and update our app to Prisma 5.2.0. Sorry that I have to go quiet and do this super quick. Okay, we've installed those packages. We're now going to regenerate. Notice we didn't change any commands. We haven't done any of that. We haven't changed our env file. We've just updated to Prisma 5.2. And now we're going to npm run dev. I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to click load posts. And now it works. Ta-da! So This well, don't worry about that. That's expected because this is a
And we're doing
demo
it
and
live.
it's not
That's
really
what
connected to anything.
That's what happened.
Um, but the connection works. You know, the client doesn't fail. So you can get rid of the screen now.
Okay.
That's sort of the demo. If you want to go back to that slide.
Sure.
Yeah, so that warning that popped up sort of leads into the real meat of this change, which is the new flag no engine. So for most people, you can just use Prisma and generate Prisma, and you won't have to use a flag. That
Mhm.
is okay. If you are using Accelerate or Data Proxy in production, there are some cases when you should use the no engine flag. Mainly those cases are when you're bundling or deploying to a service that isn't removing engine files by default. So if you've worked in AWS Lambda using either SST or the serverless framework, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to go in, you have to find these files, and you have to remove them. Or if you're using something like Dino deploy, Dino deploy is another case where you're going to have to remove these files. There are some cases when you won't have to use no engine. Those cases are Cloudflare Workers and Vercel Edge. I both believe have bundlers that take care of this and don't include any engine files by default. But I would say that during your production deployments, it's better safe than sorry. I would use this no engine flag, which will guarantee that one of the Prisma query engines isn't put into your build artifact and then deployed. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you space. Overall, it's just a better approach.
Great. Yeah. That was great to highlight. That was great to show. Hopefully, if you guys have any questions about that and maybe if you should use it in certain scenarios, always reach out to us on Twitter or join our Discord or Slack or wherever you can reach out to us. With that, we're gonna move into the next segment here. We're gonna talk about Accelerate. Just went into preview. We're gonna bring on Petra. She's gonna give a little bit of a demo. I see we have a question in chat about Accelerate, so we'll make sure we answer that there. I'm gonna hit a transition, bring on Petra, and then we'll get to that. So thanks for being here, everybody. Petra, hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. First time on What's New in Prisma. Why don't you say a little bit about yourself? Who is Petra?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Petra, as we have talked about. I'm the head of developer connections here at Prisma. And that has been a very exciting journey because I'm coming from the engineering side of Prisma previously. So worked a lot on Accelerate as the engineering manager on the team that's been building Accelerate. And it's been super to be able to come on the other side and tell our users about all the awesome products that we are building and tell the story of how they can build their own applications with the products that we are building. And I really believe that these new data DX solutions that we are creating will let people focus on building the parts of their app that they are passionate about, that they want to do, where they are providing really the value of their own solutions instead of having to deal with SQL or caching. And that's been very much the highlight of the last few weeks and months.
That's great. I mean, I'm happy to see how excited you are about Accelerate and everything we're doing, because I'm excited about it too, just as a developer and as somebody that uses Prisma, right? I just know how much it's going to save me. Why don't we talk about what exactly Accelerate is? And we have two questions in chat here about it. I don't know if you want to answer those before we give the demo or maybe after, but why don't we just talk a little bit about it first, and then we can decide what we want to do.
Absolutely. I can definitely do that, and we can take a look at the questions before we head into the demo.
Okay, great.
So Accelerate is one of those data DX solutions that I think really will help people build their own applications. And Accelerate is a connection pooler on the one hand, but it is also a caching solution for your Prisma queries. And I think that is super because it can help you lower your latencies for your queries in various ways. So if you have a cache hit, you're just bringing your data closer to the edge to your users. So you don't even have to go to your database to have the result of that query. And then on the other hand, if you do have a cache miss, or if there are queries that you don't want to cache because you always want the most fresh data available to your users on your web app or your app, then you need the connection pooler probably to make sure that your database doesn't run out of the connections that it can handle. And so the accelerate regions for these connection poolers are available also in various regions globally. And so you can choose one that is close to your DB. And so this caching part and this connection pooler part being close to your DB really ensures that we can help you lower the query latencies in whatever setup you have. And I think that is really great because these components on their own can get relatively complex to maintain and really nail down to work great. And it's super how easy it is to set up Accelerate, and we will see that in the demo in a few minutes.
So we mentioned Data DX. Where does Accelerate fall into that? Like, why was Accelerate something we wanted to make that helps the data, like Data DX and developers use? Like, what made those decisions create Accelerate? That makes sense.
Absolutely. I would say that we've had the connection pooler before, and we have taken a lot of learnings from that. And building data-rich applications easily really depends and relies on your database. You need to get data out of your database. So making that easy and being able to bring that data close to your users and where your application server is such an essential part of building with data and providing a good developer experience for the developers building those applications, that we think that, and I'm very excited about that Accelerate is really an integral part of that data developer experience journey as you're building applications that are data rich.
Great. That was a great answer. I couldn't have given that good of an answer. That was great. Why don't we pull up some of these answers from, or questions from chat, and then maybe you can give a shot at answering them. The first one is from Patrick here. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Is Accelerate meant to be cloud only offering, or is Prisma, or will we be able to provide our own cache storage, e.g. Redis?
So Accelerate is a cloud only offering of Prisma. You need to create a Prisma Data Platform account to be able to use Accelerate so that we can take over managing that component in your own infrastructure. As for using your own cache storage, for example, Redis, you would need to implement it, I believe, just as outside of Accelerate. You can definitely do that. And when you're implementing your queries in your application code, simply go to Redis and check if you have a cache hit there or not, and only go to your database if you don't have one. But that would be outside of Accelerate.
That was a good point. I didn't think about that. So you could technically set that up and then have Accelerate work with it or on top of it before it hits Redis, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think where Accelerate shines there is that you don't have to do that logic. You don't have to deal with the bugs. You don't have to make sure that Redis is configured properly. You don't have to manage another infrastructure component. You just replace your database connection string with the Accelerate connection string, and everything just magically works.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, so the next question we have here is from Tobias. It's Toby. I'm just gonna say Toby. How does Accelerate with environment need to create separate apps in the dashboard? I'm not sure. I don't 100% understand. Maybe you do, Petra.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Definitely. Okay. So with Accelerate, when you create a project on cloudprojects.prisma.io, you would create a separate project for separate environments. This is so that you can separate the connection string, because presumably your environments use different database connection strings because you have a staging database, you have a production database, and you want to set up those in separate environments. So you can just simply create a separate project for that, get different Accelerate connection strings to be able to use it in staging or development and production separately.
Okay, that clarified my confusion too. What is the recommended setup with database branching for Accelerate?
I would say if there are different connection strings, that is also different projects. Mark, maybe you can help me clarify database branching, or if that, or Toby, maybe you can, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm not, because database branching might mean different things. When I think of branching, I think of, like, for some reason I'm thinking of planet scale and like the different branches you can have of the database there, but I don't think that is what they're talking about. So, I mean, John, do
For
you?
what it's worth, that's also what I
Yeah.
think when I hear database branching.
Mhm.
Yeah, is about Neon, Planet Scale. There might be others as well. Frankly, it's a kind of a new concept for me. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how Accelerate would work with database branching. That's a tricky one.
He's saying branching with separate environments, preview environments.
Yes. So I would say if it's separate environments, then the same as before, separate projects that are related to a specific database connection string. But Toby, if you have a specific question related to maybe a database provider, please find us on Discord and we can sort it out and we can dig into a little bit around what your specific setup is and see how we can, what the best setup or recommended setup would be for that with Accelerate.
Great. Well, why don't we jump into the demo here, and then if there's more questions, we can save them till after the demo. We can hit a transition if you need, Petra, to get that set up, and then we can come right back. So one moment, guys. We'll be right back. All right, I looped it because I wasn't sure if you were ready. Oh, you weren't ready.
I believe I shared my screen so that all the stream things were on it as well. So let me just try again.
That's all right. That happens. It happens to the best of us.
All right.
You ready this time? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I will have to switch sharing to switch to the code editor in the meantime, or in the middle, but I think we should be good there.
That's all good. That's all good.
So what I wanted to show everyone is just a super quick demo of how easy it is to set up, accelerate, and configure it and see what it does in an extremely simple project. And we will start from scratch here and start with setting up a project with Accelerate. So whenever you go to cloudprojects.prisma.io, you can simply hit the continue with GitHub button after maybe you have scrolled through and checked out what Accelerate does and maybe got all interested about what Pulse is and joined the waitlist. You can simply hit the continue with GitHub button that allows you to log in. And I'm just getting that button.
Doing it live. That's what happens.
Yes. You can see, I assume you can see the dashboard now.
Yep.
Perfect. So this is my personal organization here, workspace, and we are just going to hit new cloud project. And we will go with the Dizzy Rust Koala because that's very cool. And we now have a project on the Prisma Data Platform. So we can now either enable Accelerate or enable Pulse if you're on the early access program for Pulse. So we're just going to go ahead and enable Accelerate here. This is going to be super simple. We will put in a database connection string, choose our region, and then follow the instructions to set up Accelerate. So let me just grab my connection string that I already have at hand. This is just going to be a Postgres database that we can remove afterwards once all the secrets are out, and the end files will be shown as well. You can see here that this is an US East one, so we will just choose a region. We have a lot of these, much more than in the data proxy, that you can play with and choose the closest to your database. So we are going to use US East here and hit enable Accelerate. Accelerate is enabled, and we will get the connection string next to set up Accelerate in our application. So you're just going to hit generate API key, which will generate an API key for us, as well as put it into the Prisma Accelerate connection string and autofill it essentially with the database URL assignment already. So we can just hit copy here, say that we have securely stored our connection string, and hop on over to the code editor. So we will go through these steps. It's super simple. Essentially, we're just going to install the dependencies if we haven't yet, generate the Prisma client, and then add the caching strategy to our query. So I'm just going to do that and make sure that I'm sharing the right tab. So I will share my editor. All right. You must be seeing Studio now.
Yep. We're all good.
Perfect. So we are in our end files now with all the secrets exposed here, and we are going to add the database URL and environment variable that we got from after enabling Accelerate on our project. Afterwards, we will follow the instructions. So what we will do is install the latest Prisma client. We are all good there. And then we will install the Accelerate extension to go with that and be able to set up Accelerate. So after we have done that, we will need to extend our Prisma client with the Accelerate extension. So how Accelerate works with the Prisma ORM is we have the Accelerate client extension. A client extension is a feature of the Prisma ORM, and anyone could build any client extension that they would like to extend the Prisma client in whatever way they would like. And it has been super to be able to use this feature of the Prisma ORM to build Accelerate. And that means that it is super simple to extend our Prisma client so that it works with Accelerate. So we're just going to extend with Accelerate. And now we have a Prisma client here that has Accelerate working with it based on the connection string that we have set up in our environment file. So next up, once we have the Prisma client that uses Accelerate, we will just have to add a caching strategy here to our query. So we have two functions here. One will do a query normally without Accelerate. We are just going to count the number of nodes that we have in our database. And then we have a query with Accelerate that we will extend right now with a caching strategy. So we get autocomplete here. It's a client extension, but you get all the goodies of being able to see the Accelerate API essentially, obviously just as you're used to with Prisma. So we have a caching strategy here. We are going to set a TTL of 60, and that is essentially it. Now you have caching on your Prisma query, and that's amazing, I think. And another thing that we will do to see a little bit more info about our Accelerate results or our caching results is adding this to the end of the query with Accelerate info. And what this is going to do is it will just extend the result of the query so that it includes some information about the cache hit or miss. And how we can use this is just decompose the result to a data and info object so that we can return info here from this query with Accelerate function so that we return both the number of nodes, which is the result of the count, as well as the Accelerate info so that we can log some more information about this query. So now we have this. Basically, we just extended our query with caching, which I still think is absolutely amazing because it's so simple.
Yeah,
we can hop on over to the main script that I have prepared here. And we are going to just make sure that our Prisma client is generated. We can use the new -- no engine as well as the -- accelerate. Both of these are doing the same. Now that we have made sure of this, right now what this is going to do is just running the query 10 times. First, it's going to just use the query without Accelerate, and we are just going to log the results. So we are going to do npm run dev, which runs our script. That was quite the cold start. Without Accelerate, getting the connection to the database. So we are around 300 milliseconds here. Let's see what we can do with Accelerate. So I'm just going to switch out the implementation code, very simple, just commenting out the previous one and making sure that we are running the query, including Accelerate, and getting also that extra Accelerate information. I have the other side of the terminal here so that we can see the results side by side. We got a few cache misses here first until the cache got populated. It's possible that wherever you are, you're hitting 2 different pops for the cache nodes. So it's possible that one of these cache misses hits a cache node, a point of presence or pop, and once that's done, we do the query to the database, we get the result, we put it in the cache, and the next query would get a cache hit. Now, if the subsequent queries hit different pops, then you need to populate different pops. So you might be hitting one pop that just got populated, and then you hit a different one that needs to be populated again. So you might be getting multiple cache misses. And we can see that essentially without Accelerate, you get 200-300 milliseconds per query. And with Accelerate, you bring this data closer to your user, and you're getting sub 100 millisecond query latencies or around that number.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much it. That's Accelerate, and that's how easy it is.
I think that's wonderful. I don't know if we say that's easy and that's it, but like that's huge in a lot of different scenarios. I do have a couple questions from that. One, it looks like you can just use Accelerate right now if you have access to the Prisma Data Platform, right? You can just go in and start using it right now.
That's correct. Accelerate entered public preview last week, and so you can just go and log in and use your GitHub login and just go use Accelerate and try it. We are currently very much looking for feedback, and we will be production ready once we go to general availability or GA. So try it out in your development environments, your staging environments, and let us know on Discord or Slack or Twitter what you're thinking and what you're running into. Yeah,
that was a good point you put in there. That's not GA yet, because when a lot of people say, "Oh, I can just use this now," and then it doesn't work in production. So maybe don't put it in your big production app yet, but definitely test it, put it through the ringer. I thought it was cool that you could add it. If I'm understanding properly, you can add it individually to different queries, right? So you can try, this one needs to be cached, it's big, it's going to be asked for all the time. Let's put Accelerate on this, but maybe there's another query that you don't necessarily want the cache on, right? So you can choose where you put it, and I thought that was great.
That's right. You can just take a look at how that query is used. Maybe there is a profile picture that can wait 30 seconds to be updated, or maybe there is an order status that you want the freshest because your users and your customers just really want the latest order status. So you can really find the right TTL and SWR and cache configuration options for that specific query and how it's used in your application. And I think that really allows you to try Accelerate with just one query and see how it performs, see how it does, and go from there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, John, do you have any questions for Petra, or?
Oh, I mean, it's fantastic. Demo, and I used Accelerate last weekend in order to sort of work on a side project of mine. So it was that easy to set everything up and get things working.
Great. Well, and if you're in chat and you're trying out Accelerate, let us know how it goes. Tweet at us, send us something on Discord. Always reach out. We're here to help. I'm excited to see what you guys build with Accelerate. Petra, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to be moving on to the next segment here with Amplification, bringing on Yuval. But any final words, Petra, before we kick you out?
Nothing. I'm just very much looking forward to hearing from our users how they are using Accelerate and what they are building. And please do let us know. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right, so we're gonna hit a transition, bring on Yuval, and then we'll get into the Amplification demo here. Thanks again, Petra. I hit the wrong transition there. I hit the end show transition up the. They allow me to have hotkeys for the transitions here. But hey, Yuval, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for joining us. I know it's a little bit later where you're at, so thanks for sticking around.
Early evening. Hi, very happy to be here. How are you guys?
Doing great. why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into application here.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I must say I'm really impressed with the previous demo, with the accelerating. It looks really, really easy, and I know how powerful it may be in critical scenarios. So I'm glad to see that coming live, and I think the integration with the Prisma ORM is quite easy. So really nice. Hi, everyone. I'm Yuval, founder, CEO of Amplication. Really glad to be here. Joining from Tel Aviv. Well,
no, I was just gonna say, well, thanks for coming here. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. So I will say a little secret. I saw the demo before we're doing this live, so I'm a little bit excited already because I know what's coming. So maybe you want to give a little bit of an intro to what we're going to be talking about, what we're going to be demoing, and then we can get right into it.
Sure. So the main focus today is going to be about our new feature, importing database schema into Amplication. But let's maybe start with what is Amplication for the audience who doesn't know. So basically, Amplication is a code generator for all the repetitive boilerplate scaffolding backend code, which is based on part of it based on Prisma, Node.js, Nest.js. So we generate fully functional code for backend. We also generate some client application for admin UI, but everything from APIs, GraphQL and REST, authentication, authorization, integration, testing, deployment. So we generate everything that is not like the business value. The idea is to allow professional developer to get all this code, ship it to their Git repo, and give them full control in order to allow them to run really fast and get top tier infrastructure code in order to build their actual business value. And we recently launched a feature that allows instead of starting from scratch and building all the entities manually, we launched a feature that allows organization to actually import an existing database schema using Prisma introspection and Prisma schema. And we generate all the data models, DDOs, entities, APIs, endpoint, CRUD on top of it automatically. And it's really nice. And I'm happy to be here to show it.
Yeah, that, I mean, overall sounds extremely exciting to me. Like being able to, as a developer, being able to know I have this idea, I want to get it to base already, like quickly, and then I can build on top of it, right? I don't want to do all the boilerplate. I don't want to do all the setup, the thing I've done a million times creating every single project I've had in my head, right? Now I know I can just do it right away and then build on top of that. I think that's great.
Exactly. And one more thing that is really nice, that it's not only a one-time thing when you just generate a boilerplate and start working on top of it. Application allow you to continuously make code changes on top of what we generate, and you can always go back to application, make code changes, add data entities, add more services to your microservice architecture, add message broker in between, add APIs or whatever, change authentication, add integrations, and we always going to generate a pull request on top of what you already have. We will never overwrite your custom code. So it's just like a new team member that works with you on all the things that you don't really want to do continuously, so you can focus as a developer on what you really want to do.
Yeah, that was a cool explanation. You basically can have a team without having a team, right? That's kind of the summary I was getting there. Like you're coming with an idea, but I don't want to have to pay people to do all the stuff I don't want to do. I can just use the application, right? That's great. That's a cool idea.
Exactly.
So why don't we jump into the demo here, and then we can get going, and you can show off everything.
Sure thing. So let me share my screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep. There we go.
All right. Cool. So let me quickly change here the workspace I'm working on. So application is, of course, open source. You can find our GitHub repo on GitHub and just give us a star, please. But feel free to join the community and contribute and stuff. But let's start with a quick demo. So I will go to our website. Application is eventually a SaaS platform which you can easily sign into with your GitHub account. Once you signed in, this is our interface that allows you to go and start configuring your application. I have here a new project, which already connect to a GitHub organization. I will show you that in a second. And what I will do now, I will just go and quickly create a new service to showcase what we're doing. What I'm doing now, because I want to also show the database schema importing instead of manually creating the data model and starting from scratch, I went ahead to your nice example projects, and I just choose one of them. I choose InfoFish API. I went to their GitHub repo, and I download their Prisma schema file. Here it is right there with several entities, several data models and fields and everything. And what we will do, we will use that schema in order to import that. Imagine that you have a database, you run introspection, this is a schema you got, and then you start building the application. In this case, we start from the schema, but of course, if you have a legacy database with an old stack and you want to start from scratch, but on top of an existing database, you can just use Prisma for the introspection. Once you have the schema, you can go from there. So we're going to build the Ironfish project for this example. So let's call it Ironfish. And I'm already connected to Git organization I created. So I'm going to create a new repo for this project. I have the repo ready. I'm going to choose to use GraphQL, REST API, and also I want the admin UI on top of it. I will use a mono repo pattern when I want my services to go into the apps folder. I will use a Postgres database for this demo. I will start from scratch because I want to import the data models from the schema Prisma. And for the sake of the first demo, I will skip the authentication part just to show you how we create the entities, I create the data models. We call it entities. So right now, what I would do usually at this phase when I just set up my basic infrastructure for my service, the next thing to do is go and create data models, like create customer, order, whatever. In this case, we want to show the new feature of Upload Prisma Schema. So we have this button here, and I will click here to choose a file. I will just go and use this schema I downloaded from GitHub. And here we go. We have all this logging, doing some formatting on the names, creating the entities. And here we go. We have all these entities ready. So if we go here on the entity list, we see that all the data models that were imported from the schema file are available. We can also switch to our ERD view. We can see that all the data models that were on the schema file are available now. So we imported the data fields. We imported all the data types, all the attributes for different things, and so on. So on the way, we also do some kind of formatting for the code in order to generate class and entities and properties in a proper format. So we do some naming, and we keep the database original names using the map attribute of Prisma. I will talk about it soon if needed, but more or less, this is the new feature of the database import. At this point, I will just commit changes because I have all my data models, and that should be enough. Application also provide functionality to add plugins, and I will talk about it, and add roles and permission. But just to show the simple use case where I have data models and I want to generate everything, this thing is running in the background, generating the code, going to take another 15 to 30 seconds. And we get a pull request with all the DTOs. By the way, all our interfaces, like the DTO services, they are all built on top of the Prisma API and the standard. So we have all the different data models and DTO in order to use it on the API, just like in Prisma Client. Very similar naming convention. We didn't adopt everything, but still very similar. So it's going to be very easy for anyone using that to use it. Right now, the code generated successfully, so it's ready, and we're pushing that to GitHub. And like I said, once it's done, we will get a new pull request in GitHub, which we will be able to clone, open, and use it for our needs. So I will go to GitHub. I will see that I have my new Git repository with pull request number 1 with 453 new files that were automatically generated for me.
Wow.
I will prefer the merge just to go here on the code view and see everything I got. So I have the apps folder with the Ironfish and Ironfish admin. The admin is just a React admin on top of the API that knows how to do all the CRUD, listing, filtering, searches. the admin server, of course, we're going to see Prisma here. So this is the Prisma schema that we generated from the Prisma schema we imported. And other than that, we can see that we have all the files that are ready in order to run this project with all the different entity with their DTOs and types and fields and everything.
Wow.
So I use, yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, like, you know, you were showing importing a schema that, like, from another project, but honestly, you can start an entire project just by using a Prisma schema. Like, you can just map out your entire table structure, everything you can think about, and then upload it to this, and then you have everything, and you don't have to build like a lot of.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So
I think it's a great way to start a project. Is you just start with the database schema and all the tables and the relations, put it into this, and then you have everything. You can go from there.
That's true. So let's maybe look on 3 different scenarios. One of them, you are greenfield, you want to start from scratch. So you can go and write your own Prisma schema and then bring it to application, import it, and generate everything. But even if you don't want to do that, you can go and create entities manually, create the data models manually. Like, I want to create a customer model, and I want to define for my customer model first name and last name. And for each one of those fields, I want to select the data type, and I can add Prisma attribute here. So basically, I can use application as a Prisma schema generator, like a UI for Prisma schema generator, because once I generate that, I get all the Prisma schema ready. Now, I did also prepare another demo where I want to complete the full cycle. I want to clone the code. I want to run it locally. I didn't want to do it with the Ironfish because maybe the data modeling is too complicated to grasp. So I prepared a very simple demo.
Okay.
Let's go and create a new. Project. Let's call it demo blog. And what I did, I took the blog schema of our blog, application blog. So if you go to application.com and you can go to our blog, this is the platform we are using. We're using application with Prisma to generate the server. All the code is available. So if I will go to application repo and I will look on the blog server. So this is our blog server. It's available on GitHub. And basically what I did, I went and copied a Prisma schema from here. And so I have the blog demo, and let's create a new service here. By the way, in this example, I'm only showing a separate, like a standalone kind of a monolith service to do everything, but application also support like microservices when you can create different services with different databases, and you can add message brokers in between, or you can add the API to connect them, add Kafkas and stuff. So really nice, and maybe that's for next time. But for this time, let's create our blog demo. And I will create a new repo for that. Let's call it blog demo. Once again, I will continue with that. I will use the same pattern. I will leave it for Postgres empty. This time I will include the authentication module because I want to show you how we actually sign into the app, how we use identities, models, and everything. So I will include the authentication module. And once we do that, we can see that we already have the first entity called user because that was created automatically by the authentication module. You can change that. You can do whatever you want with it. But let's go and upload the blog schema now. So as you can see, our blog schema includes just like a post, an author, and tag, where post can have multiple tags, and an author, and so on. So that's ready. And I can go and commit that. We'll just click commit. And while it's running, going to take like 30 seconds like before. I want to show you our plugin system and just a glimpse of it. When I choose to use the authentication module, we automatically install 2 plugins that created by application for Nest.js authentication module and the JWT provider. And also when I choose to use PostgreSDB, I installed a plugin for PostgreSDB, but we also have a plugin for MongoDB and MySQL. So application is very opinionated by default. but it also allows the community or anyone to build plugin in order to customize the code generation process. So you can easily change the code from Postgres to MySQL, and we can see that in a second if times allow. But let's go back here. We see that our code was generated. We'll give it just a few more seconds to push to GitHub. If you have any question, by the way, feel free.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but all the APIs, are they just, I guess, how are they generated? Where are they generated in?
Can you refine that question?
So is it like a Next.js API route, or is it like?
Oh, yeah. So we use Nest.js as a web framework on the server side. So we're not using Next or one of those full stack tools, but we use Nest.js, and we deliver you all the code for that Nest.js application. We can see that right now. Let's merge this new repo, and I will go to my code view, and let's clone this code and see what we're getting. So let's go here, extend that, and I will clone this repository, and I will have to put it here. All right. So this is the code we got. We have the blog demo server, and we have the blog demo admin. What I will do now, I will just open a new terminal window, and I will start installing my server. So npm install for the actual API, and I'll open a new one, and I will do npm install for the admin, for the React admin. Once that's done, if I will go to the README file on our server, we can see all the instruction on how to set up the server. So of course, npm install is the first instruction. Then we go with Prisma generate. We are running the Docker compose file. So we also generate all the Docker file that needed to run the application. In this example, it's just a Postgres database. But if you need Kafka or MySQL or anything like that, that will also be included in the Docker compose file. Once that's done, we're going to run the DB init, which do the seeding on the database, the first user, and so on. So we will see that in a second. Probably the admin is still running. The server is also still running. Should take a few more seconds. And then we will do the next steps, and we will see that live. Okay, so the admin is ready. We will just let it be for a second until the server is also ready. So the server is ready. We will run Prisma generate in order to generate the client for Prisma. Let me just check that no other container is running before I think we're good. We will run npm run docker dev, which will spin up a new Postgres database, and we'll do npm run db init. We have the seed file right there. You can look at it and see what we're doing. But basically, we're just creating a user, simple user to start an admin in order to start working with the database. Of course, you can customize the seed for your application if needed. Once that's done, we're ready. We will just use npm run start. Let's use a watch mode if we want to make changes. And that's also a good time to start the admin UI. So we can see our web server running right now. We can see that this is a Nest.js application. We have all the data models, all the entities, all the APIs spinning up and running. And we have the admin that is running here on the other window. Let me bring it. Just 1 second. We'll do that this way. All right. So let me just log out. This is the admin UI that was generated by application for our use case. So I'm using my default user admin. I can log in. I can see that I have user, post, authors, and so on. So I can just start using that. So if I want to go and create an author, let's call it Yuval Azaz. I don't have post yet. Profile image, will give it an empty one for now. That could be that. And here we go. The server is working, it's functioning. We have a database, we have everything. By the way, we can easily go to our server And if I will use NPX Prisma Studio, we can actually see, and one second, let me just bring this window here. We can actually see our database with the author we just created. So everything is live, everything is running out of the box just by importing that schema file. And to show you on top of that, if I will go back to, let me close that. And if I will open localhost 3000, then I will go to our GraphQL playground, because we generate GraphQL and REST API. So this is our GraphQL playground. I have some queries that I created in advance, but this is just a sign-in example, and I get this credentials, and I can go and replace here my token, and I can go and run and ask for post. So I don't have post yet, but let's do the exact same thing and to query and ask for author's ID and last name, for example. And sorry about that. That was authors, not author. And here we go. So it's working. So, and same thing, by the way, localhost 3000, and we'll go to our API endpoint. We get the Swagger UI, we get the REST API, and the same thing. If you want to go and do a login, admin, execute, I get this token. I will authorize, put it here, go to our authors endpoint and try it out. Let's remove that and just execute. And here we go. We have our authors. So like I said, just by importing one schema file, we generated all the CRUD for all the entities, including relation, filtering, search, everything around it. And you're ready after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go and start working on your actual code and actual business value. Yep. And imagine that you have, let me stop sharing. Imagine that you have an existing database. You're a company with existing database, 10 years old, with hundreds of tables already, working with PHP, and you want to build a new application, modernization project on top of the database. You just take Prisma introspection, generate a schema on top of the database, bring it to application, and after a few minutes, you have everything to start working on that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So how do you, I was going to ask, I'm assuming you just go sign up right now, start using all that right now, or is there a special way to get into have the DB import schema feature or anything like that?
So the DB import feature is available to everyone starting last Thursday. So anyone who just sign up to application, all you need to have is a GitHub account. Click on Start with GitHub. And the feature is there. Just like I showed the demo, that's available to anyone. You can go and create whatever you want.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's really cool. John, do you have any questions for Yuval?
No, it's super cool. And you know, I've played around a little bit with Nest in the past. So when you started mentioning DTOs and generating that, I'm like, yeah, that's a real pain to set up, you know, on your own and get it really correct. So that was really cool to see that just all that's generated, it's totally fine. It's awesome.
We actually have a question from chat for you. Does the application have support like Strapi to create relations constraints?
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to application UI, you can define on different fields or different entities, you can define different constraints, including relations. So you can, I can show that maybe really quick.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the time I've spent building that, and now No, I'm like, oh man, I didn't have to do all that for every idea that I've had, right? And it's like I need all this stuff, and I don't have to do it anymore. That's great.
So if we're looking on the example we just showed, we see that author is connected to a post and a post is connected to tag. And if we look on the entities themselves, we can see how we did it. So if we look on post, we can see that tags, for example, is relation to entity tag with a relation of one to many or many to many. In this case, it's many to many. And author, for example, is also a relation and it's one to many. So out of the box, you can go and define if it's a unique field, required field. Searchable means that once you set it searchable, it will be available on the API in the find or find many attributes. So if you want to look for authors by meta title, you can make it searchable. But if you don't want people to look for employees by phone number, so you can make it not searchable. So all this, it's already baked. So you can easily do that. And I think one of the most core principle with application is eventually anything that is not available in our UI or our console, you can go and use with custom code, because you can always go to your GitHub repository. You can go and open your VS Code and you can start changing stuff. So if you want to go and change the Prisma schema and add more constraints, add indexes, anything that is not available to our UI, you can do that. Although that's specifically for Prisma attribute, you can go and do something like index here, right there, and we will generate that index on the author or the entity itself. If you want to do it on the model, you can do it in the model. So you have all the flexibility to do it from here. But anything that is not available to our console, you can also do it using your own code.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm extremely impressed. You thanks for joining us. Do you have any like final comments, final words, anything you want to share with the community before we move on to our next segment here? But
so I just want to say again, thank you for Prisma. If you notice, Prisma is in the core of what we do in application, and I chose Prisma 3 years ago when you still working on V2. It was still V1, and I saw how good your work is and how the community is growing really fast, and I took a bet on Prisma, and I'm happy till today that I did it, and it still empowers us to move fast. Like the introspection tool, by the way, helped us a lot, because otherwise we would need to connect to database manually or ourselves and read everything. Once we have the introspection for Prisma, we can do that import very easily. So we really enjoy what you're doing, and we build on top of it, and I think that's amazing, and thank you for doing such a great work. And I know that application is not the only tool that build on top of Prisma. I know like there is a huge ecosystem, which is amazing.
yeah, I mean, well, thanks for saying that. I'll be sure to clip that and send that around to the team, because I'm sure everybody would love to hear that. I mean, and coming from Prisma, you know, that's why we're doing all this, right? It's so people can make awesome things on top of it. I always say, like when I'm explaining to my family members what I do or what the company, what I work for, it's like I always say, like, it's like I'm selling paintbrushes to painters, right? It's like we're building this awesome thing that people can use to make even cooler things, right? So it's always great having somebody on that can show the cool things that they made with Prisma. And thanks for those kind words. That's very nice of you.
Absolutely. With pleasure.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being here. We're going to move on to office hours. You have a good evening, Yuval. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you very much. It was great seeing you and being here. Have a nice day. Good night. Good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yuval.
We're going to transition here and then bring on Tyler for office hours. Thanks for being here, everybody. Tyler, there he is. He's been sitting back the whole time, just waiting for his time. No, what's going on, man? Welcome back to What's New in Prisma.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure having you on, because I always joke with you internally that you're the guy that knows everything, right? So having you on for the
That's what you think.
Hey, man. Hey, fake it till you make it, right? That's how it works. So thanks for being here. So in case anybody doesn't know, office hours is kind of our way to interact with you guys about questions, right? For anything Prisma related. If you have things about the ORM or Accelerate or Pulse, or say you're building a project with something that interacts with Prisma weird, right? This is the place to be able to ask us live those questions. And another thing we do is we take our Discord and we go through our help channels in there and pick out a few things that we feel like we should discuss and talk about. So if you're wondering about, maybe you're not catching this live and you want to be able to get your questions asked and put them on stream, one, we answer them all the time anyways without them being on stream. But if you want to be on stream as well, you can ask in the Discord. Make sure you join our Discord, prisma.io/Discord. And then, we'll answer your questions there. So let's jump into it. I know we have another question in chat that we also will be answering about Accelerate. So don't go anywhere. I know I saw that. It didn't slip by, I promise. But we're gonna do these Discord questions, and then we'll get into any questions that pop up in chat. So Tyler, thanks again for being here and being the one that can answer most of these questions for us.
I'll do my best.
So this first one here, I'm querying a table called cat and trying to find the first cat by using an array of strings. This is the code I have. I want it to become case sensitive. How do I do that? And Tyler, this is one you picked out, right? So you might have a good insight on the solution to this or what the problem is to begin with.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting to talk about on stream because it gets into some maybe nuance of how databases work with case sensitivity. It's really interesting that different database engines have different defaults for whether they're case sensitive or insensitive. I learned this back as a junior dev when I discovered it and immediately started looking through all the code I had written to see if I had made a mistake because I was using a database that was insensitive, and as an application developer and most programming languages being case sensitive, like that was just shocking to me. So yeah, really interesting one. We have a link, maybe we can put in the show notes of our documentation on how case sensitivity works. But short answer is like most databases are case insensitive. There's some Postgres and Mongo that are case sensitive. Some of the database engines you can change the default. A lot of time that's called collation if you want to search for it and see how to change that. But Prisma has an option when you're doing string comparisons to specify a mode field, and you can say that you want to switch from default to insensitive. So for those databases, Postgres and MongoDB that are case sensitive by default, you have the option to change that and switch to case insensitive.
I did not know that. That is new to me. So I appreciate you asking this question because I learned something. John, what did you know about this? I did not know about this.
I had also had that moment where some databases are case insensitive and some databases are not. But it has not come up for me, at least. I've basically been in the Postgres world my entire career. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's also interesting that setting can also change how it matches things like tables and column names. So if you're on a database that's not case sensitive, a lot of times like it'll also accept like the wrong case, or what I guess not wrong, but not the exact case on referencing columns and stuff. So I've even had situations where I've had a database, I thought I'm going to change this setting, and now I've got queries that I accidentally used the wrong case again, and now they're broken. So it's very delicate to change that setting after you have an app running.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the information. And we'll be linking to this segment for this question in the Discord. So if you're not here and you missed this, we'll make sure you get your answer. Next question from the Discord. Curious how folks approach organizing their Prisma queries for reusability. It seems from looking at some example projects that most just use the client directly without abstracting it at all. For one of my current projects, we've tried to abstract reuse queries, but this doesn't necessarily lead to less repeated code since we have to write separate functions for each model.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of flavors of this. And flavors of solutions to hear it. A lot of it depends on the team and the frameworks you're using and what you want to accomplish. Personally, I look at Prisma as an abstraction layer of its own. It's abstracting away your database operations for you. And I found that adding too much abstraction sort of on top of that kind of starts hindering the ability to use Prisma to its fullest. For example, if you try to add like a service layer on top of Prisma sometimes, and then you get a new use case where maybe you wanted to add like a new filter or apply some kind of limiting, you might find yourself just repeating Prisma's capabilities in that service layer to expose it to some other thing that you want to write. So once you start sort of repeating the behavior that Prisma already supports, that's where it starts to feel like the abstraction that was added isn't super useful to me. But it all depends on like your team's needs and what you need to do. A couple of things that I do like to suggest here. Client extensions are a great way to augment the Prisma client with some common operations you might need to do. and make those like reusable around your code base while still staying really close to the Prisma client. Another thing I do a lot is if I have a particular type of query that I'm running quite frequently, like let's say I have a function that looks up a user from an email address, or maybe from a session ID or something like that. I might have that scattered around multiple different like API routes or different workflows, and want to be able to reuse that. What gets kind of tricky though is I'm a fan of using the select field when doing any kind of Prisma query. I just default to it every time. I've got lots of reasons why I do that. I highly suggest it. But when you do that, the types that come back from Prisma are dynamic, right? They're generated from what you selected in the select. That way you're not accidentally using a column off the model that maybe you didn't include. And that's great, but it does make the types a little bit harder to reference elsewhere. So for example, like if I have that function that gets the user and I'm only selecting like ID and name, what do I put in a function signature in TypeScript for another place that needs to take that user in? For that, I recommend using the awaited and return types utility, generic utilities from TypeScript. So essentially, you can have this function that returns that selected Prisma model, and then wrap it in these utilities that TypeScript gives. Maybe we can write an example of that later, guys. That'll give you a nice reusable type for what that function returned. And the cool thing about that is your types now flow through the whole system. So if you need to add like that extra field, like email onto that user, and you go back and add it to the query, it automatically just propagates to the types everywhere else in your app. And if you accidentally try to use something that's not available, you can clearly see it. So that's something I use really common. Like that's probably my go-to approach for reusing Prisma queries around my app. That was long-winded. Did y'all have any questions about that? Do you want to follow up on that?
I had one, and then you answered it, and then I had another one, and you answered it. So I'm good. I'm good. I mean, that was long-winded, and it made sense. I think though, this is a common kind of question that might pop up, and your idea of maybe coming up with an example or some kind of resource that might answer this question, and have it out there and existing might be good. So maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we can do that, work on that, something like that.
Yeah. Also, if anybody has any specific examples that they want to get some advice on, drop it in our Discord. I'm happy to follow up on with more specifics for a particular use case or that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, our Discord definitely has been doing really good since we launched it. And John, you were the one that really kind of took that and ran with it, and I'm really surprised.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, truly.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I mean, because maybe you can explain this better than I did. It was a community server that we decided that we were like, this is awesome. We should support this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So frankly, the request for a Prisma Discord has been a long time coming, and we've even had GitHub issues and GitHub discussions on why don't you have a Discord server yet? And so a member of our community, Olinho, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, decided to take it upon themselves to make a community server and say, if you would like to join, please do. So we're really thankful for them for starting this server and additionally allowing us to step in and say, hey, we'd like to make this an official server. Yeah, it's super nice, super exciting.
And it's always fun interacting with people on there, because I feel like Slack to me is a work, right? Discord's community, right? That's kind of how I see it. I know others might see it differently. So it's a little bit more casual in there. People kind of joke around, have fun, share stuff. It's always a good time. So there was one question that we missed about Accelerate, and that came in after Petra was done demoing. I just want to make sure we do get it. Does the Prisma Accelerate feature take up a lot of memory? And Tyler said he would be willing to answer this for us.
Yeah, for sure. I've worked quite a bit on Accelerate. I think the short answer is no. And the reason for that is all of the caching that you saw happening with Accelerate, that happens in our infrastructure. It actually happens on a Cloudflare worker runtime that we operate. So that means that cache is distributed all over the world and all the Cloudflare POPs that you might access it from as you query it. But you don't have to deal with that on your application layer. You don't have to worry about it consuming all that memory or having to keep up with what should be kept and what should be dropped. All that's managed by us. You just throw a cache strategy on it and we'll handle it. And then it actually could have some memory benefits on your app in that when you run a query through Accelerate, especially when you get into a really deep nested relationship query for Prisma where it needs to pull all this data back and then join it up and build a JavaScript representation of that object, we move all of that into our infrastructure. So essentially, your Prisma client sends a query, a simplified version of the query to Accelerate. If it goes back to the database to sort of run that query, it'll unpack that into all the queries it needs to get the data, rebuild that into the JSON representation that's needed, and then send just that back over the wire. So your application doesn't have to do all that heavy lifting of remapping all the data back up. So I think we haven't really tested that on a benchmark level, but I would imagine it has quite a bit of a benefit on the memory side.
That was great. That was a great answer. I'm excited to see everybody use Accelerate because it's one of those things that's like a why not, right? It's why not just use it and see how it improves things. And because it's so simple to set up that I really suggest everybody go try it out. Why not, right?
Yeah.
If there's no other questions in chat, I'm willing to get everybody out of here. We did go a little bit over today, but like I said, it was a jam-packed show. So I hopefully everybody got a lot of information. I'm really excited about everything that was demoed, and excited about 5.2, the changes there, how we continue to improve speeds and all of that. John, Tyler, do you guys have any final things?
Try Accelerate. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear it.
Yep.
Yeah. This came up before. I forget where, but we're making tools to improve your lives, and we want to improve those tools. Things are good, but they could always be better. So please do give us your feedback in whatever social channel you prefer. We'll really be appreciative of that feedback and are excited to receive it.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much for being here on What's New in Prisma. We will see you guys in 3 weeks for our next episode. We have another guest planned. We have the next update for Prisma ORM coming out. Lots of cool stuff. Thanks so much for being a part of the community, and keep making awesome stuff. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you.